Now, Chapter 37, the Porphyrion Bracelet. Odiana cried out for Bree as the roof stopped collapsing. Blaze had dispatched the firewolf he had been battling and made his way over, and was now attacking the wolf closest to him, using more of the Thunderbird's lightning attack. He stopped when he saw the large pile of rocks on the path to the central altar and began to cry. The firewolf he was fighting turned to swipe at him, burning a streak of damage across Blaze's face. The other firewolf stood between Odiana and the pile of rocks, growling at the fairy. It got down on its haunches, ready to pounce as high as it could. There was a sudden rumbling behind the beast, and it turned to look at the pile. Many of the boulders rolled away until the largest boulder, nearly twice the size of any firewolf, was being hoisted into the air. Beneath the boulder, holding it above her head, stood Bree. There was no way she could be able to lift a boulder that was twice her size, no matter how much she tapped into the gifts given to her by the ether. Yet here she was, holding a boulder weighing almost a ton above her head with very little effort. Odiana, Blaze, and the remaining firewolves froze in place, amazed at the sight of her strength. She took this distraction to throw the boulder on top of the firewolf closest to her, crushing it easily. The final firewolf cried out and was soon silenced by an intense lightning blast from Blaze. With no firewolves left, Bree sighed. There was a long silence between the three before Bree sat on the boulder behind her and smiled. "That was intense," she commented. Blaze and Odiana came close to her, staring at her with a strange expression on their face. "What?" she asked. "How were you able to lift that boulder?" Blaze asked. Bree glanced over the cracked boulder across from her. The realization of what happened suddenly dawned on her. I don't know." She looked beside her to another boulder that was about her height and laid her hand against it. She pushed it a little and began to roll like it was filled with air. Standing, Bree reached underneath the bottom edge of it and lifted upward. With almost no effort, she could lift it into the air like it was as light as a feather. She shifted her stance and then held it with one hand. Blaze and Odiana glared at her, their mouths agape in amazement. Steadying her body, Bree shifted the boulder on her hand and tossed it away. It flew nearly 20 feet and splashed into the lava pond in the distance. After taking a moment to recognize what just happened, she looked at the bracelet on her wrist. She ran her hand along it, marveling at how light it was, and how it seemed to be almost like a second skin on her wrist. "This bracelet must give me the strength." Blaze sniffed at it. "Where'd you get it?" "I thought it was her teleporting bracelet," Odiana said. "She told me to grab it, and I saw it on the altar, so I thought that was it. I didn't think to ask why she placed it there." Bree stood, turned, and faced the center of the lava pond. The crumbling statues of the firewolves remained, and in between them was a small altar that looked like a bird bath. Without saying a word, she began walking to the center of the room, picking up and tossing the remaining boulders from the collapsed roof that blocked their path. Once she got to the center of the room, she put the grip hook away and stared at the bird bath-shaped altar, with a shallow basin and a dusty outline where the bracelet had been. She looked to her wrist, read the word hidden in the metal, and then turned to the others. "Any idea what Porphyrion means?" Both of them shook their heads. "Well, whatever it means, it makes me awfully strong." Odiana flew over to a spot in the ground and picked up a curved lump. She flew back and showed Bree the item in her hand. It was what remained of the Vitarian bracelet. Half of it was melted into a curved blob, while the other half looked melted along the edges. She could barely make out the central symbol, and only the symbols for fire and water remained. Taking the wrist, she tapped the central symbol. Nothing happened. She pressed the other symbols and stayed in the room. She sighed and put what remained of the bracelet into her hip pack. "We'll have to get to the water temple on foot once we're done here," she said as Odiana sprinkled some fairy magic over her wounds with Morgana's wand. "Where do we go next?" Blaze asked. Bree turned and gestured to the hole across the lava pond that they came through. "Did you find anything your way?" "No," Blaze responded, and then slowly walked over to the large slab boulder blocking the tunnel across from them. "How about this way?" Bree chuckled and placed the earth shield on her back again. "I couldn't lift it before, but I think I might have a chance now." The boulder was twice the size of the one that landed on her, nearly 3 times as wide. She crouched before it, digging her hands underneath until she felt the bottom. It wasn't as light as the other boulders, but it was still easy enough to move, sort of like a heavy door. She grunted as she lifted and then shifted the boulder to the side, throwing it toward the far end of the lava room. Once the dust settled, the trio stared deep into the tunnel that went into the stone wall only 30 feet before it ended. The small cavern before them was carved into a simple alcove. The walls were covered in the symbol for the fire temple, and at the far end, hovering 10 feet off the ground, was the element of fire.